Welcome to my channel. It was just an ordinary night or so. I thought the house was quiet, the lights dim, and I had finally exhaled. After a long emotional day, I did not expect him to sit beside me on the couch. Nor did I expect his hand to find mine. At first, it felt innocent, comforting even. But something in the way he looked at me shifted the air between us. It was not just grief we were sharing anymore. It was something deeper, more confusing, and terrifyingly intimate. In that moment, I realized I was not prepared for the boundary he was about to cross. After my husband passed, the house began to feel like a museum. Every corner heavy with silence, every photograph whispering memories I could no longer bear to hear. I had learned to function in fragments. My days were filled with routines that gave me purpose. Coffee at 7, laundry by 10. Silence by 3. My son Michael tried to visit often, and his presence always lifted the weight if only slightly. But grief has its own timetable, and it does not wait for permission to linger that night. Michael brought along his best friend Ryan, who had practically grown up in our home. He was always quiet as a teenager, respectful in a way that made him seem older than his years. I had not seen him in a long time but when I opened the door and saw him standing beside my son, something about his presence pulled at me. Unexpectedly, he was no longer the lanky, shy boy I remembered he had grown into his features. Broad shoulders, dark stubble along his jawline, eyes that seemed to search for something unspoken. They came in laughing, trying to bring light into a house that had forgotten how to hold it. I played the part of the gracious hostess, pouring wine and setting out snacks like it mattered. It felt good to be needed again, even in small ways. When Michael got a call from work and had to leave suddenly, he asked if I could drop Ryan home later. I said yes. Without hesitation, the two of us sat in the living room. After Michael left, surrounded by dim lighting and soft jazz humming through the speakers, Ryan offered to help clean up, but I waved him off. I had grown used to handling things on my own still. He lingered near the kitchen doorway, his gaze watching me more closely than I was used to. I tried to ignore the way it made my skin prickle. "You seem tired," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Have you been sleeping?" I gave him the same smile I gave everyone lately, the one that pretended everything was fine. "Sleep comes and goes," I replied. "Grief is unpredictable that way." He nodded, stepping closer with that quiet steadiness that always set him apart. "You do not have to go through all this alone, you know." I felt the sincerity in his voice, like a soft wind against my chest, pressing into places I had locked away. The truth was, I was lonely in a way I had never admitted aloud. Not just for company, but for touch, for someone to look at me and truly see the woman beneath the mourning widow. "I know," I said quietly. "But sometimes it feels easier to just stay numb." He did not respond with words. He just sat beside me close enough that our arms brushed. His silence felt more intimate than any conversation. I became aware of how long it had been since anyone had sat beside me like this. I was painfully aware of my age. The lines time had gifted me the grief that weighed in my posture, and yet I felt beautiful in that moment seen. We started talking about memories, my husband, their teenage years, the way the house used to be filled with noise and chaos. I laughed at a story Ryan told about a prank they had played in high school, and the sound startled me. It had been so long since I had heard my own laughter. As the night grew quieter, the air between us grew heavier. He looked at me like I was not someone's mother, like I was not the woman who had once packed his school lunches. There was something different in his eyes now. Something unspoken but loud enough that I felt it all through me. I glanced at the clock. It was late. I should have gotten up and grabbed my keys. I should have created space. Instead, I stayed. "I never told you," he said after a long pause. "But I always admired how strong you were." "Strong?" I asked, almost laughing again. "I feel anything but." "No, not just now, always. Even when I was younger, I saw it. You held your family together, even when things were falling apart." His words landed deeper than I expected. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was the hour. Or maybe it was just that I had not heard kindness spoken to me like that in a long time. I looked at him, then really looked, and for a moment I forgot the years between us. I forgot the history, the rules, the titles. I saw a man who cared, who remembered me not just as Michael's mom, but as a woman with a heart still beating beneath all the loss. That was when he reached out and took my hand. It was not aggressive, it was not even particularly bold, but it was intentional. His fingers slid over mine slowly, gently, like he was waiting for me to pull away, but I did not, I could not, because in that one touch I felt warmth, I felt seen, I felt alive. It was then that the questions began to flood me. What was this? What did it mean? Could I allow it to be anything? Was this comfort or something else entirely? I felt 1,000 answers bloom and wither in my chest, all in a single breath. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like years, I whispered, "I do not know what to do." His voice was quiet, careful. "You do not have to decide anything tonight." And yet we both knew something had shifted, something that would not be undone with morning light. I sat there, my hand still cradled in his, my heart pounding so loud I wondered if he could hear it. Ryan's touch was not forceful, it was patient, steady as if he understood the storm swirling inside me and was willing to wait until I was ready to step into it. 1,000 reasons to pull away flooded my mind, my age, my past, my son. But none of them felt strong enough to break the spell weaving itself between us. He did not rush me, he just stayed close, his thumb tracing slow, invisible circles against my skin. The simple intimacy of it nearly undid me. I realized then how long I had lived untouched, unseen, surviving, rather than living, and now sitting beside this man who once roamed my kitchen, searching for snacks as a boy. I felt something reawakening inside me that I thought had died with my husband. I miss feeling close to someone. I admitted, my voice barely more than a whisper. It was a confession I had not even dared make to myself. Ryan squeezed my hand gently, as if promising that he heard every word I could not say out loud. "You deserve that closeness," he murmured. "You deserve everything you have been too afraid to want." Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back. I had cried enough over loss. Tonight felt like it belonged to something else, something new and terrifying and beautiful. He shifted slightly, his knee brushing against mine, and suddenly the small space between us felt electric. Every part of me was hyper-aware of his nearness, of the warmth radiating from him, of the way his breathing synced with mine, like we were already sharing something deeper than words. He moved closer, pausing just long enough for me to pull away if I wanted. I did not. I tilted my face up, meeting his eyes. Those deep, searching eyes that asked for nothing but offered everything. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to say no. But I found myself rising to meet him. Halfway, the kiss, when it came, was not urgent. It was tentative, filled with a kind of reverence that made my chest ache. His lips brushed mine softly, almost asking permission. And I answered by leaning into him, deepening the kiss with a hunger I had forgotten I could feel. I tasted warmth, patience, something that felt dangerously close to hope. When we finally parted, I stayed close, our foreheads resting together as we caught our breath. His hand cupped my cheek, his thumb tracing the curve of my jawline with a tenderness that made me shiver. "I have thought about you more times than I should admit," he said, his voice. I laughed softly, a shaky, disbelieving sound. "You are too young to be thinking about women like me." He pulled back just enough to look at me fully. "Age does not scare me. You are more beautiful than you have ever been." I had spent so long hiding behind grief and responsibility that I had forgotten what it felt like to be admired. Not for duty, not for endurance, but for the woman I still was beneath all of it in Ryan's gaze. I saw none of the pity I had grown used to, only desire, only respect. The rational part of me screamed. It begged for distance, for control. But another part, a deeper, starved part of me, craved connection more than it feared consequences. "Maybe we should slow down," I whispered. Even as the words left my lips, my body betrayed me by leaning in closer. Ryan smiled, a small, knowing smile that melted any resistance I had left. "We can go as slow as you need," he promised. I don't want you to feel alone tonight." Something inside me cracked at those words. I had been strong for so long, carrying grief and responsibility without pause. That simple offer, shared loneliness, felt like salvation. I nodded, and he pulled me gently into his arms. We sat like that for what felt like forever. His hands rubbed slow, soothing circles on my back. My head rested against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. It was the safest I had felt in years. When he finally pulled back, his eyes searched mine again, as if asking if I was sure. And I was. I truly was. He stood and offered me his hand. Without hesitation, I took it. He led me slowly down the hallway. The house bathed in the soft, golden glow of nightlights I kept on more out of habit than need. Every step felt surreal, like I was walking into a life I hadn't dared to imagine before. In my bedroom, he paused again, offering me one last moment to change my mind. I answered with a kiss, deeper, more certain. He responded by holding me tighter, his hands mapping the curves and dips of my body with reverence, as if every inch of me was sacred. He undressed me slowly, carefully. Each movement made my breath catch, and with each layer removed, I felt more seen than I had in years. When the last piece fell away, he stepped back, his gaze filled with intensity that made me blush. "You are stunning," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I reached for him, needing to close the space between us. As his hands found me again, every fear and whispered protest disappeared. There was only sensation, only connection. We made love slowly, shyly at first, as if rediscovering a forgotten language, the language of touch, of breath, of skin on skin. He was gentle, attentive, as if every part of me deserved tenderness. He kissed every scar, every soft curve, like they were sacred, and I let myself believe, for one night, that I was worthy of that tenderness. When it was over, we lay tangled in the sheets, his arms wrapped around me, anchoring me in a world I thought I had lost. I traced lazy patterns along his chest and felt something I hadn't known in years: peace. We didn't speak. Words were unnecessary. Everything important had already been said in glances, in the way he held me like something precious. As I drifted toward sleep, one thought echoed. Maybe healing doesn't always arrive as we expect. Sometimes it comes quietly, with a gentle hand and a heart willing to stay. For the first time in years, I did not feel alone. The morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and warm, but the weight in my chest was anything but light. I stared at the ceiling, nestled against Ryan's shoulder, allowing myself to pretend that the outside world didn't exist. But reality has a way of demanding to be felt. I was a mother, a widow, a woman nearing 50. And the man whose arms held me was my son's best friend. The silence between us grew thick, not uncomfortable, but full of questions neither of us had dared to ask. Ryan stirred. He didn't move. His arms remained steady around me. "You're overthinking," he murmured. Sensing the storm inside me, I turned to him. How could I not? What we did, it felt right in the moment. It felt real, he finished for me. And it still does. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to hold on to that feeling. But reality rarely leaves space for what feels real. You're young, Ryan. You have your whole life ahead of you. You deserve someone who can grow with you, not someone who already carries a whole past. He sat up, ran a hand through his hair. Don't do that. Don't shrink yourself into something unworthy just because of your age or your past. I see you. I have always seen you. I blinked fast, holding back tears. He didn't know how long it had been since someone looked at me and saw more than a role, not just a widow or mother, but a woman. Maybe that's what scared me most. I pulled the sheet around me and got up, pacing. This isn't just about us. It's about my son, our families. What happens when they find out? What happens when he looks at you and realizes you were with me? Ryan came behind me, his hands warm on my shoulders. Then I will stand in front of him and take whatever comes. Because last night wasn't a mistake. And I'm not walking away just because it would be easier to pretend it never happened. I turned to face him, hands trembling. But what if I'm not strong enough? What if I lose my son because of this? He stepped back, giving me space. His eyes were calm, but filled with sadness. Then I will walk away, if that is what you truly want. But I'll walk away knowing I gave you my truth and meant every word I said. It shattered me, his willingness to hurt, his refusal to push. He wasn't trying to possess me. He was simply offering himself. The rest of the morning passed in quiet conversation. We dressed in silence, not out of shame, but reverence. There was no pretending, just two people holding something too tender to name. When he left, he kissed my forehead. I watched him walk away with a heart that felt both full and fragile. The hours stretched slowly. I moved through the house like a ghost, touching the walls, the furniture, the photographs, trying to reconcile the woman I had been with the one I had become. His scent lingered on the sheets, in the air, on my skin. I thought about my son, the boy who used to laugh at the kitchen table with Ryan, their sneakers muddy from soccer practice. How had I ended up here, holding pieces of something forbidden? And yet, I didn't regret it. That night, I sat alone on the back porch, watching the stars. I wrapped myself in a blanket, trying to feel safe. Ryan's words echoed in my mind. You deserve everything you've been too afraid to want. Was it selfish to want to feel desired again? Was it wrong to find comfort in the arms of someone who truly saw me? The tension wasn't between right and wrong anymore. It was between fear and honesty, between hiding and living. And for once, I didn't want to hide. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. There was a softness in my reflection I hadn't seen in years, an unspoken acknowledgement that I had crossed a line I could never uncross, yet I didn't flinch. I smoothed my blouse, not to impress anyone, but because I felt alive again. For the first time since my husband's death, I wasn't just surviving, I was feeling. Later that day, Ryan texted, "Thinking of you, no pressure, just, I'm here." Simple, gentle, making space for both desire and doubt. I stared at the message, a smile forming. I typed back, "I'm thinking of you too. I'm not ready to walk away from what this could be." I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. I would have to face my son, face judgment, face myself. But love, I had learned, is rarely simple. It finds us in our messes, wrapped in longing, and asks only for the courage to choose it. That evening, I sat on the porch again, Ryan's jacket still draped over the chair. I felt something new rise inside me, not just hope, something braver. I was not who I had been yesterday. And maybe that was the most beautiful part of all.